Hello, everyone, and welcome to DataBank's CISO Corner podcast. I'm Dane Dittamore with DataBank and joined, of course, by DataBank's very own Chief Information Security Officer, Mark Houpt. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Dane. Good morning. How you doing, sir?
I am fantastic. You don't have to call me sir, but I guess you having served, I should call you sir.
No, we'll just call each other by our first names. How's that? Hi, Dane.
Hey, Mark. All right. Well, today's topic is pretty meaty. We could probably wax on about this for quite a long time, but we'll probably make it short and sweet. So,
All right. Well, that's
um,
absolutely correct. It is meaty. I'm up for a good steak, but I got to have my potato with it. How's that?
well, you were telling me recently that a business can't just create a single data security plan or a single continuity plan, really. It needs distinct plans for different aspects of data security.
That is absolutely correct, sir. We must do
And
that.
and the different plans that you recommended were business continuity, incident response, and disaster recovery. So let's tackle business continuity first. What are the aspects of this plan that are different from the others?
Okay, so first of all, let's just go back and very briefly, very briefly say, hey, look, the information security policy is an overarching policy that says, hey, we need to have multiple policies underneath that to support it. So business continuity is one of those supporting policies. So you need to, if you don't have an information security policy, start there. Don't dive in with a business continuity policy. But if you've got one, let's dive into business continuity. All right. And so business continuity is really not focused on IT. It's not focused on security. It's focused on how you keep your business going in the event that there's an outage, in the event that there's a problem. Now, business continuity will take into account everything, or should take into account everything from, hey, it's snowing outside and we got a foot of snow coming down. How do we deal with that? It used to also include how to deal with situations like pandemics, but in the past few years, we've now created our, independent pandemic plans. But the bottom line is, in a business continuity, you're focused on how to keep your general business running, how to keep revenue coming in. If you don't have anything to sell, or perhaps you have a product to sell, but you have no way to sell it, then you have no way to make money, right? So business continuity is, how can I continue to make money in spite of the tornado that just went through my main headquarters, or the flooding that occurred in the basement that took out XYZ, or I guess reality, if you're in California, the 2 feet of snow or the 3 feet of snow that's happened that prevents you from getting to work and causes other problems like that. How are you going to continue to serve your customers at a very business basic level? That's what business continuity does.
Yep. Yep. Um, well, so next up is really incident response. So give us a thumbnail of incident response.
All right. So we talked about business continuity being how we keep the business running. The incident response is how we respond. And I make a distinction between reaction and response. If you're sitting on the doctor's table and he's poking and prodding you for your annual physical exam, and he takes that little triangle hammer and he nails your knees, the reaction is it's a jerk. It's an uncontrolled reaction to an event that occurs. Now, if we don't have a response plan, which I believe a response versus reaction is uncontrolled. It just happens. Response is a controlled event that directs your attention to recovering from an accident or a situation that causes it to go into effect. So a response is very deliberate. Reaction is very jerky, if you will. All right. So if we have an incident response plan, what we're doing there is we're saying, hey, these are the things we've done a risk assessment on our environment. And these are the things that we believe are going to potentially at some point impact our business. Not necessarily, again, from an IT perspective, although a lot of them these days are IT related, ransomware, for example, or a DDoS attack. But the incident response plan could be active shooter. Technically, that's also security, but it could be an incident response plan that could be built into the pandemic, for example, or different things along those lines. But bottom line is, your incident response plan is your playbook at a high level of how you're going to respond to an unplanned scenario that impacts your business's ability to operate, typically from an IT perspective.
Yeah. Well, so got it. Now, finally, disaster recovery. Let me pose this question. What do you think is maybe the most or a couple of the most important things that a company needs to consider when they tackle disaster recovery conceptually?
Yeah. Well, the name of it says one is recovery, because the other two, business continuity, says how are we going to continue? Incident response is how are we going to respond to a situation, but disaster recovery is, how are we going to pick ourselves up from an absolute total wreck type of situation and get moving. So a couple of things that we need to consider in our disaster recovery plan are three things I want to give you that must be in your disaster recovery plan. First of all, it's what we call RTO, or the response time objective. How long is it going to take you? I'm sorry, recovery time objective. How long is it going to take you to actually recover from the disaster? Is it going to be 24 hours before you're at a certain level, 48 hours before the next level, and so on and so forth? Then you have what's called an RPO, or recovery point objective. And that is, how much data or how much of a situation are you willing to lose? So, for example, you have a bunch of people that are sitting in your support team or your data entry team in a hospital type of environment, and they're coding in all of the doctor's orders and stuff into a system. That system, if that system were to go down and the last backup were, let's say, 3 o'clock in the morning and it's 11 o'clock in the afternoon, then what you're going to say is that your recovery point objective in that particular case is the 7 hours. Is that right? Yeah, 7 hours between the 3 o'clock and the 11 o'clock. But
Yeah,
perhaps
you're going
that's
to lose
not good
that
enough.
data. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to lose all of that data. You're going to have to go and redo those 7 hours worth of data input. So you may, through that process, you may say, hey, my RPO is 1 hour, or perhaps even 30 minutes or 15 minutes, which means then you need to drive your systems, whatever the system that is, to be able to do backups and ship it off site every however many minutes or however many hours it is you identify that you could lose and you're willing to recover from. So those are the two things. And then inside the disaster recovery, you need to have a call tree. You need to know who that call tree is, not just who you pick up the phone and call, but it's also a rank order of who can make decisions. And that call tree says, so and so, in the absence of the CEO, can make decisions on where to recover the data and how much of the recovery needs to occur. And sometimes these disaster recoveries documents are subordinate to a business continuity plan, for example, or even an incident response plan, and kind of go together and work together. But those are three key things that I would have in my DR plan.
Well, yeah. So let me just add a couple of things, based on my experience in the industry.
Yeah.
And we always would call it, have an executable plan, because I think there's a little bit of a misnomer sometimes when the IT staff is asked to develop a plan. They're like, oh, well, as long as I type out a bunch of documentation and put it in a 3-ring binder, we're good, because that's the plan.
Yeah.
And what they find out is that if they actually do encounter a disaster situation and they need to recover, they never really went through all the steps on how to get everything recovered to another site, for example. And
Exactly.
so you would think it's kind of a common sense approach, but they didn't have an executable plan and they never tested it. So those are just two of the other things maybe that I would point out as part of that. And
Yeah.
so keep that in mind. And that's not a plug for DataBank services, although we offer
Well,
disaster recovery as a service. But
well,
it's just
we
to
can
point
plug
out
that.
that
This is,
have something that you can push a few buttons
yeah,
and get things recovered to the RPO and the RTO that you
right.
want to
Well,
accomplish.
we
So
can plug that because this is the DataBank CISO corner, so we can plug our services. But you're absolutely correct, and security security is very broad in what happens inside of these programs and these documents. But it's just like your health. Okay. Human health, it demands attention, nutrition, avoiding bad habits and things like that. And what these documents allow us to do is to avoid those bad habits. And through the incident response training, through the tabletop exercises for DR, BC, those kinds of things, they allow us to exercise and pay attention to the health of our business and a health of these plans, so that when the bad things do strike, we have a better ability to recover. And that's what it really is just paying attention to the health of our organization by doing these plans.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a great analogy. I mean, it really is very similar to healthy habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eating right,
Absolutely.
exercise, all those sorts of things. And so great analogy. Well, if you're interested in being notified about the next CISO Corner, please subscribe to our channel, of course, and hit the little bell so you'll be notified. And if you have a topic that you'd like Mark and I to cover in the future, please drop us a note at CISO@databank.com. And that's CISO@databank.com. And that's a wrap for today. And as always, be safe and stay secure.